Good day, and welcome to Impact, a community affairs and discussion program of the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. I'm Jeff Frederick. Across the country, nearly 20,000 separate cities and towns have municipal governments chartered to help make sure the people's business gets done. And while the majority of North Carolina towns have less than 2,500 citizens, that only changes the scale of local government, not the essential duties. Roads must be built and repaved. Big city or small town, sewers still have to work. Police and fire must serve and protect. In short, towns require effective governance and management just to make the trains run on time. Even more so if the goal is economic development, growth, or adding additional quality of life amenities like parks or recreation facilities. For us in southeastern North Carolina, medium-sized towns like Lumberton have both faced a host of challenges and an ever-increasing set of opportunities. Hurricane Matthew left an indelible print on so many, only to be followed 2 years later by Florence. With tobacco and textiles less of a factor than just a couple of decades ago, mayors often lead the charge to court new industry and maximize advantages like Interstates 95 and 74, land prices, and access to a community college like RCC and a university like UNCP. They plan and budget for a future, all while taking care of the needs of the present. My guests today are Lumberton Mayor Bruce Davis and City Manager Wayne Horne. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you for having us.
So let's start with the basics. Not long after you became mayor, we got a hurricane.
We did.
Not long after that, we got another one. Talk about the challenges that were unleashed and how you are facing those. And how do you coordinate all of these different agencies and entities that might have a stake in the process?
Well, when Matthew hit, we were not prepared for such a dynamic storm. We reacted and we came out pretty well. The city had some 460 applications for housing assistance under the program. Only 106 were approved for assistance. So we sent 300 that weren't approved to the county CDBG housing assistance program, which is income sensitive. So the issue of individual assistance at the time has taken for federal assistance to reach individuals that were flooded has just been so slow. It's made a huge problem for a lot of people. Matthew funds for buyout, elevation, demolition, rebuild have taken 2 years. Many low-income families didn't have flood insurance, so they were forced to relocate. Some were exhausted and their resources under Matthew had to borrow money under Florence. But much of the support for these families came from nonprofits like Baptist Men, Methodist Men, and local churches. The city actually set up feeding stations as well as relief areas. The city had numerous public buildings and infrastructure damaged itself. Our water plant, our public works, electrical utilities, all had losses. Our public assistance request exceeded $6 million. FEMA reduced their participation to our losses by 75% because we didn't have flood insurance. Who knew we would need flood insurance? But Gold Leaf stepped in and provided grants to cover our unmet needs. I'm going to let the manager go over some of these fundings, individual assistance, et cetera.
Well, as the mayor said, the logistics of what we were involved in with Matthews was at a point almost overwhelming. You know, we had to deal with FEMA, we had to deal with the nonprofits, we had to deal with the property owners, we had to do warehousing, distribution, we had volunteers coming in, and at the same time we had our regular city budget. And you have to remember that 80% of the community was not impacted, so they were expecting services to be at the same level they've always been. When you get into these programs, you have individual assistance, which is the individual property owner. You have public assistance, which deals with any public infrastructure that may be damaged. And as the mayor stated, just on the hazard mitigation, which is a FEMA-sponsored program, which is not income sensitive, we have almost $13 million. And that program is just starting up as we speak. We just completed the first 5 buyouts in that program, and we've got another approximately 45 that we're working on. And then in that same program, we've got another 30 plus homes to be elevated, and then another 30 to be demoed and rebuilt. And that's where you have homes on concrete slabs or either on or block construction that you can't elevate. So when we started working with the program, FEMA came in and said, well, if you don't have flood insurance on your properties, then there was a 75% reduction in benefits. We found that interesting that we had never really seen that in writing. It could have been something that was overlooked. Our insurance carrier had never told us about it. And keep in mind, a lot of property was behind the levee, so it was protected. So the state did not want to deal with the infrastructure issues directly, so they moved their money under Golden Leaf because Golden Leaf was a granting agency. And they really stepped up and really kind of filled the gap, and they used the term unmet needs, and that was where that reduction came in. And they filled that gap, and so that the city basically was held harmless. We got almost 100% funding. The other issues that we were dealing with is mitigation. For example, our water plant, which was inundated the first time with over $2 million worth of damage, had to be protected from future flood events. So FEMA approved $1,250,000 for a berm to go around the water plant to prevent future flooding. Hospital, with the older infrastructure around it, was flooded out so that emergency vehicles couldn't have access to it during the peak of the storm. So we went to Golden Leaf and asked for some mitigation infrastructure money, and we were approved for $3 million for improvements. And we'll actually be reversing the flow of the stormwater in the Tanglewood area and taking it directly to the river out of the Meadow Branch. That has a twofold effect. One, it improves the drainage around the hospital. Secondly, it takes some of the hydraulic load off of the Meadow Branch. So we're really excited about that program. We felt like it was something that was needed for long term, and then that project is fixing to start up. The thing you read the most about, and at least I can say the least about at this point in time, is the Floodgate project, and that project is going forward with funding from Golden Leaf and from the state CDBG DR money, which was HUD money sent down for the hurricane relief. That project is now being engineered and getting ready for to be put out on bids. It's probably going to be a 2-year project time it's started and complete. We have to work with the interstate highway system. We have to work with the railroad. But all those things are moving forward, and about the same time, Florence came in. And so now we have another 100 applications for housing assistance under Florence.
Well, let's pull this apart a little bit at a time. So in the middle of these 2 storms, right, the first emphasis is first response, right? How do we help people? So how were you coordinating some of the action that's happening during both Matthew and Florence long before we get to response and recovery and relief?
So as soon as the storm hits, I get a call, and we got out the next day. I get a call from Governor Pat McCrory. He says, Mayor, I'm in my helicopter, and I'll be in Lumberton in about 3 minutes at the Hyde Park Church. Meet me. Yes, sir. So I drive over there. He gets out of the helicopter. He puts his arm on my shoulder. He said, Mister, he said, you are about to go through something that you will never forget. He said, this town is in trouble. He says, I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do, but he said, I can tell you this. I called you on my cell phone, so you have my cell phone number. He said, whatever you need, you call me. He always answered that phone, and he always delivered.
So the first is first response. How do we do it? We're in the middle of this storm. We knew it was coming, and now it's really here, and it's going to turn out to be worse than we expected. So you're coordinating all of the fire and safety and medical response. And then once the storm is sort of passed and the waters begin to recede, now you're starting to think about housing. And that's when all of these applications first start rolling in.
Absolutely.
The problem kind of gets compounded because we lost over 200 units in public housing. And so you've got issues on the public housing side. That's a separate board, a separate group that's working. You had the public schools that were flooded, central office. It's another issue that you're having to work through. Then keep in mind that the areas that were impacted the greatest by Matthews was primarily low to moderate income neighborhoods. And these folks have a very difficult time working through the bureaucracy, knowing what to do, how to proceed, what documents are needed. And think about this too, for example, on buyout, some of these homes over there will fall into a range of $40,000 to $50,000. You can't buy out and go somewhere else with that money. So you're kind of in a catch-22.
So there's all of these complicating factors in the middle of all of this first attempt to really get people a place to stay. And then you have to factor in the state and the federal government, each with their own set of priorities and own set of applications, and then granting and block granting possibilities. So you're attempting to play an orchestra with more instrument groups than you could ever imagine that are in the middle.
Absolutely.
Well, as the mayor stated, you had over 400 applicants. We had 106 approved under the mitigation, which is the FEMA program. And that's not in consensus. So you've got roughly 300 and some homes, families out there that are still impacted. You send them over to the county. The county was administering the HUD CDBG monies. It's income sensitive. So folks that were in the middle income, say on the north side of Lumberton, didn't qualify for that program. Right. So the state came in with some special programs on North Carolina Housing Finance. They came in with some programs under community development block grants, and we applied for all those and had been approved, and we're working through that process. So we got ongoing grant programs in addition to the FEMA programs that are in place. So
in the real world, you have some people who qualify for something, but it's not sufficient to take care of their needs. You also have some people who don't qualify, who suddenly are in a situation where, well, what am I going to do about my small business, or what am I going to do about my property? So you kind of get them coming and going as a result of storms like this.
Absolutely, and it's the first storm. So you don't have any resources to call on. You can't say, well, I remember.
Right.
Well, you can't remember because you've never been there.
It's the first time.
First time. So.
And unfortunately, not the last time.
Well, that's true, but you know, it was just the same day, that same day, before the day was over, by 4 o'clock, we had 16 or 18 pumps on the dike pumping water out of West Lumberton to South Lumberton. And so it's something you learn rapidly, but you learn.
Yeah. And as you suggest, with 80% of the town not necessarily impacted in the same way, they're still requiring the ongoing services. When is my trash going to get picked up? When are all these things going to happen? At the same time, you're dealing with these people who are in real crisis management mode.
And then we learn after a few days that you can live without electricity. You cannot live without water.
Well, having experienced some of that myself, I would agree.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, let's turn our focus to maybe some more positive developments, because you've talked about some of the ongoing issues with mitigation and granting and plans to change some of the infrastructure. What about new businesses moving in? What about economic development? Talk a little bit about some of the positive things that are working.
An excellent question. We have right now some 18 projects going on in Lumberton that's, quote, new construction. 10 of those items are brand new construction. The other 8 are renovations or rebuilds, that sort of thing. It's a long list. Can I read it to you?
Sure.
Sam's Club location will be a new product distribution center with 150 new jobs, which is a great thing. 50,000 foot of Hobby Lobby will take over the Lowe's food store. Kmart is being redeveloped for 3 businesses, Ollie's, Big Lots, and Planet Fitness. We have a new McDonald's already open, a new state employees credit union on Highway 211, a new KFC facility in the same location. O'Reilly's is building a new second location. Kia Motor Dealership has built a new dealership on I-95. Holiday Inn Express has submitted plans for a new 5-story hotel. Popeyes has submitted plans for a new construction at their new location on Fayetteville Road. We are building a new airport terminal, which was started before all the storm stuff. City staff is working with owners of Ramada Inn to redevelop a plan on this property that includes 2 restaurants and a new motel. Northeast Point Apartments is 72 units on Harold Road. Griffin Park Apartments is 22 units on Roberts Avenue. Jimmy's Seafood Restaurant is being renovated under new ownership. Huddle House, the old Huddle House, has plans to renovate that into a Cold Stone Creamery. And Robinson Healthcare's new 12,000-foot medical facility on East 2nd Street. And we are just so proud of the fact that even though we've been through all this terrible stuff, we're really beginning to come strong.
So reports of Lumberton's demise are greatly exaggerated.
Greatly exaggerated.
There's an awful lot of good stuff working.
Absolutely.
And the one thing we left out on this list is that the county is renovating the former BP&T building downtown to their administrative offices, making a huge investment down there too.
So if we look at all of what the town has been through and all of the changes that are coming, some of which have already been completed, what have you learned about the residents of Lumberton in the last couple of years?
I've learned that even though many families were impacted and they had such a hard time, they were very resilient. They got together, they came together, we all worked together, and we were able to recover together. Some people are still recovering, but some people have really come a long, long way. You know, while public assistance is important, the community outreach from churches, volunteers, and nonprofits are what really spurred in the beginning, because as you know, government is slow. This is a good time for me to thank Baptist Men and their CEO, Richard Brunson, who toured Lumberton with me right after Matthew and made a commitment to help. He bought a building, he remodeled it, he brings in 150 people a week. They work them all week, they send them home, they get another 150 people the next week, and they continue to rebuild homes of our citizens, and they're still here today. From the bottom of my heart, God bless Baptist Men.
So there's all of these wonderful stories of both external agencies who come in a time of need and volunteer their time and their expertise and their service, and also countless stories of ordinary Lumberton residents who look out for each other, who take care of each other, and have helped to ease some of this burden.
Methodist Men has a smaller operation, but it's the same operation. And we're proud of them as well.
And then the other group that came in, like the Mennonites, the Lutherans, we had just, you start naming names, there's just so many of them that you could leave out. But on a personal note, it's interesting that during Katrina, Lumberton sent help to Lumberton, Mississippi. During Sandy, we sent help to Lumberton, New Jersey. This time, Lumberton, New Jersey sent help to us. The mayor was on the phone talking with our mayor and Mayor Davis. And so that personal interaction between cities that have had these natural disasters is it's kind of a strong bond, and they reach out to help each other.
It's an interesting fraternity of communities that have experienced this kind of thing and have learned to help each other, whether it's in their state or across state lines. So one of the also positive things from last summer was the Dixie Youth World Series. Talk about that event, and what did people tell you about Lumberton who weren't from here?
Well, as I like to say, it was a home run. The one thing I remember about people, they came and they told me how much fun they had and what a great event it was, but they also said they felt as safe in Lumberton as they did in their own hometown, and that was a great feeling. And even though the World Series was a community effort, we must remember that Lumberton Youth Baseball Association has been in existence for 25 years. Working to develop a first-class baseball program in Lumberton, and that led to Dixie Youth Baseball designating Lumberton as the host site of the 2018 World Series. At this time, I'd also like to take a point of privilege and thank the LYBA board. These are the people that drove to Mississippi to get this project under our belts. I talked to them on the way down there, and they bragged to me on the way home. So Bruce Mullis, Myra Kinney, Alan Folks, Roy West, Gary Carr, Adrian Lowry, and their president, Tim Locklear. What a wonderful group. I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. They did a great job. LYBA worked closely with Recreation and our Public Works and Electrical Utilities. For 24 months, we prepared for 60 teams from 11 states and thousands of visitors. The Visitors Bureau Tourism Board donated some $500,000 for improvements to that complex. We built a new field. First responders, including Lumberton Fire and Rescue, Lumberton Police, many local volunteer fire departments, they all provided security and medical assistance to ensure that everyone attending the tournament was safe and secure. Corporate sponsors were great. Parents and grandparents volunteered to keep score. It was just a fun project, one that I hope we can repeat soon.
So it was a project that we all experienced last summer, but it started 25 years ago.
Absolutely.
And all of the kids who played ball and coached and volunteered and all the businesses who supported that created a framework where a quarter century later, Lumberton could host all of these tournaments. So let's talk a little bit about downtown. What are some of the downtown redevelopment plans? What's the timeline for some of the changes that might be continuing to occur down there?
Well, we feel like we're making some significant progress downtown. We started several years ago, back when I first arrived in Lumberton. We started off kind of slow with some new parking lots down on 3rd Street. And then we worked with the county. If you notice the sign that's down there on the county parking lot, it's got the city council and the county commissioners on it. The only sign in Lumberton with both boards on it. But it was a joint project. Our city council participated with the county commissioners to build that nice facility. We then looked at some infrastructure money at the federal level, working with a lobbying group in Washington, and were able to secure a $500,000 grant for the roundabout that was built down on Water Street and E-Town Road. The state injected another $500,000, and then the city had about $150,000 in that project to make it work. But since that time, we've been working on the plaza. You probably have read a little bit about that, and we're putting in a new splash pad water feature and renovating the plaza. But council decided to look at some of the alley infrastructure to make natural walkways. So we've got one going in behind the Carolina Civic Center now. That proved to be a real challenge. When we got in there, we found a lot of old infrastructure that had to be taken out. But it made a huge impact downtown. The city council here several years ago passed a facade improvement program so that the business owners could go up to $10,000 for matching grants for improvements to their businesses. We're now looking at the 5th Street Bridge and 2nd Street Bridge. That's a DOT project, funded project to be replaced. Council has been working with the Preservation North Carolina on the old fire station, City Hall. And we're also looking at the old water plant now for potential brewery to go locate there. We're actually talking to some folks. So we have an ongoing program for downtown, such as the memorial park that's going to be built on the roundabout that has been funded by council, and that project will probably start up in the next couple of months and will flow into next year's budget process because of all the delays with the storm events.
Right.
So we just have a host of things that we're looking at for our downtown. We have a master plan. We're looking at the Riverwalk to be expanded now that the first phase of it's in. If you haven't been down there to see the Riverwalk, it's really going to be a nice addition for our downtown. I'm going to let the mayor throw in a few things here because we got a lot going on, and it's kind of hard to just think about everything that's taking place down there.
And all of those projects will provide either full-time, permanent jobs, or at least short-time, temporary construction and renovation jobs. And that's good news for all of Lumberton.
Sure. The plaza and alleyway renovations should wrap up just prior to the Rumble on the Lumber, the first weekend in March. These renovations, along with the first phase of the Riverwalk, will put the finishing touches on over $750,000 in downtown revitalization efforts in the last 2 years. It would be important to note that these projects would not have been possible if not for the support of our legislative delegation in Raleigh. Danny Britt has just been marvelous. He is always, seems he always delivers when we call. And we were able to secure nearly $400,000 in appropriation for that project. And we're currently working with him on funding the second phase of Riverwalk. And Riverwalk will begin at the 5th Street and run to north just behind the water plant, as the manager said. So we want to thank Senator Britt again for his hard work on behalf of the city.
One of our other long-term goals, and we're working on this right now, is to connect the roundabout with, the state is fixing to upgrade the Carthage Road Bridge. That's been approved for funding. That project will start up.
Is that exit 19?
Exit 19. We applied last year for a BUILD grant, which is a federal grant, to widen Carthage Road into downtown Lumberton. That's the shortest connected distance from 95. We weren't successful this time, but we learned from that process, and we'll go back and try again next year. But it's interesting you mentioned jobs, but since we've been working downtown, 4 counties has located their offices from Warrenburg downtown Lumberton to Elm Street, and they brought about 35 jobs with them. Two Hawks Employment Service has taken the old Employment Security Commission building, and that building was renovated by the Biggses, and they are now leasing that part, and they brought in another 40, 50 jobs downtown. So we're seeing some impact on some of the things that we're doing, and we think that will continue to grow. Council's going to meet in March to talk about planning for the next fiscal year, and one thing they're going to discuss is downtown and possibly some programs that will benefit the city from the standpoint of upgrading some of the property downtown, making it more desirable for people to locate there. We're going to really kind of focus on downtown next year.
And with the university in this period of great boom, and the hospital undergoing an awful lot of changes, and some of the downtown redevelopment that you guys have already talked about, the new businesses are already coming in. The I-95 corridor is not slowing down. It's only going to increase. It's a really a surprising but wonderful growth opportunity for the next handful of years.
I left out the I-95 corridor, but it's actually been approved for about $149 million for a major upgrade from Lumberton to Fayetteville, 8 lanes on section. And that's a work in progress. It's going to take 5 to 7, 8 years for that to be completed, but it's going to have a huge impact on Lumberton.
Well, we're running out of time today, but I want to close with just maybe one more question. Tell me something that you're really proud about of the city. Just only one thing.
One thing? Well, I'm most proud of our city employees. And if you could visualize what they've done in these 2 hurricanes, you got to be proud of them, especially our department heads. I'm extremely proud of the successes seen in the recovery from these hurricanes. I've received so many nice comments about how quickly their facilities, city facilities, were restored so that people could get back to their lives. But I think Dixie Youth World Series, I got to be very proud of that as well. Lumberton had a chance to shine, and we did. The plaza and the grants. You know, the grants have been obtained to renew and repair aging infrastructure over the years, and that makes a huge difference in a town our size.
So in the midst of these 2 really challenging storms, the resilience of the city employees, of the town itself, and the growth and the opportunities are worth noting. Thank you, Mayor Davis and City Manager Horne. Thank you for a wonderful time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.